They seem to think that they can represent us correctly, but they are not doing a good job of that. And therefore, it also comes on our behalf that our generation is not voting. People are ready in this country for a woman. They want the right woman, which is why I think we haven't seen a woman in office yet besides the vice president. The polls are showing us different things, and while we shouldn't rely solely on polls, right now he's polling really well. Part of the decline in democracy that we're seeing, specifically in the United States, is the change in perception of the acceptable political behavior. It felt like forever we were waiting around trying to figure out who's going to be the next speaker, who's the next candidate for speaker, and just one day we kind of woke up and we had a new speaker. It felt like that to me. Presidents should be tested intellectually before they go into office, not based on age, because you can be 90 years old and be sharp. She's doing really well, and so I'm excited to see if she can continue this momentum. Unfortunately, the youth voice is not heard enough in politics. Some of the issues that the other candidates during the debates are bringing up, like national debt and climate change and border security, because he wouldn't explicitly say a lot of things. So I think that left a lot of people confused, and unfortunately, that's how we lost supporters. Right? Without safe, fair, free elections, there is no democracy. I mean, the point of a democracy is the representation of people. That is a different kind of pressure than an event that him himself holds. It comes as a shock because Israel knows exactly how to defend themselves. They've got a great system going on, and it's happening on both sides. It's not just Republicans, it's also Democrats. This is very unprecedented. This has never happened before. He would have needed 217 votes, but got 216. So he was one off, which means he was booted out. Ahead of the one-year anniversary of the Dobbs decision, the White House will host 80 legislators from 41 different states. This has left our government paralyzed, with many pointing blame at each other. Let's break this fiasco down. The United States has approved 4 rounds of aid to Ukraine, totaling at about $113 billion. This is his 3rd indictment in 4 months, but this case is different. Last week, we lost an extraordinary member of Congress. California Democratic Senator Dianne Feinstein was the longest-serving female U.S. senator in history. A historic day here at the federal courthouse, where for the first time, a former president is being criminally charged. These bills are intended to force major corporations and companies to be more transparent about greenhouse gas emissions. Corruption in government officials has been an ongoing issue for years now. As the weeks-long Israel-Hamas war has carried on, the United States is continuing to act.
There is a long history, there is a long context.
The Israeli-Palestinian conflict reflects over 100 years of territorial struggle over land between the Jordan River to the east and the Mediterranean Sea to the west. The Gaza Strip, a Palestinian territory ruled by Hamas, borders Israel and Egypt. After World War II, the United Nations called for the split of Palestine into 2 states, one Jewish and one Arab. But Arabs felt splitting the land in half was unfair. In 1948, Israel declared independence, while hundreds of thousands of Palestinians were expelled, many heading to Gaza. In 1967, Israel won the 6-day war, capturing and occupying the West Bank and the Gaza Strip.
Some viewers may say, oh, you're saying they're occupied. That's a controversial term. It isn't. It's a technical term. It's used by the Israeli military.
The first Palestinian uprising happened in 1987, along with the emergence of the Palestinian extremist group Hamas and its goal of Israel's destruction. Peace talks in 1993 resulted in the Oslo Accords, which gave Palestinians some self-governance. But Hamas did not recognize the deal. In 1997, the United States designated Hamas as a terrorist organization. In 2000, a second Palestinian uprising began, lasting 5 years. 4,000 Palestinians and 1,000 Israelis died. Then, in 2005,
Israel withdrew completely from the Gaza Strip, no longer having a military presence there. Now, some people in Israel say that was the end of that occupation, right? Because Israel is no longer there. Others say, wait a second. It's still to some degree a sort of an occupation because you are controlling that piece of land from the outside.
Israel left Gaza but continued to have a large influence there.
Most people on both sides want to live in peace. It's really a matter of having a leadership on both sides that can reflect the wants and the needs of its population. If we can get to that, if the leadership of the Palestinians reflected that, and the leadership of the Israelis reflected that, then of course they can make peace.
In 2006, Hamas captured Gilad Shalit, an Israeli soldier. It sparked worldwide anger. Hamas quickly grew more dangerous and more powerful.
During this time, tensions grew between Arabs and Jews. From 2008 to 2020, 5,590 Palestinians were killed, while 251 Israelis were killed. Attacks from both sides continue to kill innocent civilians, with the worst attack on Israel on October 7th.
Give everyone the benefit of the doubt and to understand we live in a gray world with a lot of complications, and to do their best to see both sides.
I'm Olivia Jean for the Center County Report.
A historic day here at the federal courthouse, where for the first time, a former president is being criminally charged. Behind me, you can see media, protesters, and a large police presence.
Some people are cheerful today, others are not. Leading up to Trump's arrival in the nation's capital, groups on both political sides rallied in front of the court.
So this to me is sort of the culmination of the last few years. I wanted to be here to see it myself.
Trump arrived by motorcade directly from the airport, taking an underground tunnel to avoid the crowd. The former president is being criminally charged for his efforts to overturn the 2020 election and the attack on the Capitol.
As described in the indictment, it was fueled by lies.
Trump is being charged for conspiracy to defraud the United States, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, conspiracy against the right to vote, and the attempt to obstruct and impede the certification of the electoral vote. The charges have divided some Americans.
This federal government has been weaponized against the American people. I fear that we're not going to be a free America.
If we can't hold someone who has the most power in the country accountable for what they do, especially in democracy, then what are we,
Trump pleaded not guilty to all 4 felonies. He responded strongly following his arraignment.
When you look at what's happening, this is a persecution of a political opponent. This was never supposed to happen in America.
Despite this arraignment, the former president is still going forward with re-election, and he's currently leading in the polls. For NBC4, I'm Olivia Jean. I'm here standing right in front of the Eiffel Tower in the city of love, Paris, France. It is a beautiful, gorgeous, sunny day, but what you are about to see isn't so sunny. For months now, angry French citizens have protested against a pension reform proposed and now passed by the French President Emmanuel Macron. These protests have occurred at least once a week since the beginning of January, and there is no timeline of when they will end. We're fed up that our government is passing laws without a parliamentary vote and without going through direct representation. In France, the absence of a parliamentary vote is legal. Article 49.3 in the Constitution states that a French president has the power to use what we call in the United States an executive order. The new law increases the retirement age from 62 to 64, which allows more money to flow into the pensions for retirement, as people will now be working longer. The law also increases the amount of pensions low-economy workers will receive. In September of 2022, the Pensions Advisory Council reported that soon there won't be enough money in the French pension system for those retired to receive all their money. The council emphasized the need for longer-term sustainability of the pension system, which is what this new reform does. President Macron said, quote, "The reform is not a luxury. It is not fun. It is a necessity for the country," unquote. The new law does not mean that workers can pack up for retirement at age 64, as it will require 43 years years of contributions to be eligible for a full pension.
Those who did not achieve a high level of education, those whose salaries are low, and women with children will suffer the most with this reform. Maternity leave is not taken into account in this new law. Those against the reform believe there are more efficient ways the government can fund the pension money. We're demonstrating because we don't feel like working until we're 64 years old, especially not in the current conditions. If the conditions were better, we would certainly work longer, but that is not the case. According to a recent report by the research firm eLab, 68% of the French oppose the law. With demonstrations occurring at least weekly, many disruptions have been felt all across France. During the days of the protests, the metro is discontinued or running at a very slow pace. In addition to public transportation issues, a trash strike has occurred for almost 3 weeks now. Piles of trash fill the streets, with trash workers refusing to pick up the garbage. These demonstrations we are seeing could almost be never ending, just as the Yellow Vest movement was. With or without the reform, the French pension system is among the most generous in Europe.
French President Emmanuel Macron still has 4 years left of his term. However, the next president is able to overrule this reform if he or she chooses to do so. Reporting live from Paris, France, I'm Olivia Osnamer.